Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Canada's women's soccer team not off to a great start at the Olympics. The head coach won't be at the opening game. Two people have been sent home after a drone was found allegedly spying on Team New Zealand. Does this taint your excitement for the games? What does it do to the Canadian women's stellar reputation? In half an hour, wildfires are a new summer reality. But some hikers have had close calls amid wildfire season. Do you know what to do? BC Adventure Smart will be here with some tips. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. The Canadian women's soccer team is at the center of a scandal over alleged spying on another team. It is alleged staff members used a drone to record the New Zealand women's team during practice. Canadian soccer coach Bev Priestman says she is taking the proactive step of removing herself from the sidelines for the opening game against New Zealand tomorrow.
First of all, I'd like to apologise. I think on behalf of the leader of this programme, I think on behalf of, I'm ultimately accountable. I think that's why it was really important to me, I think, to take this moment to show strong leadership and to represent the values of this country, of the team and of myself. And I think, I've done that because I deeply care about sportsmanship, integrity, and to be honest, the players who were taking the field.
Now, Team Canada goalkeeper Kaylin Sheridan also spoke this morning, answering the question around whether the situation will be a distraction on the pitch.
Ideally, we're trying to not allow it to be a distraction. I think there's a lot of opportunity for distractions in big tournaments. We've seen that in the past in the World Cups and prior Olympics with social media and other things. And I think this team does a really good job, and we have a lot of people surrounding the team that try to allow us to be as close-knit and as unified as possible. So at this point, that's what we're doing. We're trying to be as unified as a group as possible. And I think this group is really strong at that. And I'm really proud of how everybody's handled it so far.
Our question for you today: does this Team Canada incident taint your excitement for the Olympics? How does it affect the reputation of the Canadian women's soccer team? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone or email bctoday@cbc.ca. I'm joined first now by Shireen Ahmed from Toronto. She's a CBC special analyst for women's soccer and the Olympics. Hi, Shireen.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm guessing this is not the story you were expecting to cover today. What do we know about what has happened?
So initially last night, probably around almost 6:30 p.m., I got a message alerting me about this story that was published in New Zealand. And so I opened it up, and you want to make sure that it's a legitimate story, and it was a legitimate outlet. So it was reported first in New Zealand, and it was reported that the New Zealand team spotted a drone and actually reported it to the French authorities. So it's not only the Olympic Committee or the Canadian Olympic Committee or the French Olympic Committee, it was the French authorities who are really on alert for any kind of drone at all for security reasons. So it came back down that it was actually, and initially immediate reports didn't say who it was. And we found out in the middle of the night in Canada, they found out first in Paris that it actually was staff, one non-accredited member adjacent to staff, but one actual staff member, coaching staff member, who were implicated. Both were told to fly back to Canada and come home. And that's at the point where Bev Priestman stepped away from coaching the first match against New Zealand, which is tomorrow. And in that process, the FIFA Disciplinary Committee has, started an investigation, and we have just heard that the Canadian Soccer Association is also going to do an external investigation on this matter.
And we heard as well that Bev Priestman, in her statement, saying she had that direction in using this drone did not come from her. There was a statement from the Canadian Olympic Committee this morning saying that the committee stands for fair play. We are shocked and disappointed. We offer our heartfelt apologies to New Zealand football, to all the players affected, and to the New Zealand Olympic Committee. In the last few minutes, we heard from David Shoemaker, who's CEO and Secretary General of the Canadian Olympic Committee, saying these are the steps we've taken, sending the staff members home, and hope that would be that would amount to sufficient handling so far of this incident. I mean, how significant is this?
It is. I mean, this is absolutely a scandal. My colleague Devin Haru is on the ground in Paris, and this morning he said that's all everybody's talking about. Michelle, even more than Celine Dion's potential comeback.
That's big.
It's huge. It's taken over, and it's not at all where anybody thought. Did I think I would be writing about this as I prepared? And it's pretty unfortunate, and I say unfortunate because this particular team I've covered for over a decade. They haven't had an easy time in the last couple iterations of mega tournaments. I mean, I was in Australia to cover for CBC Sports the World Cup, and we know how that went. But this looked to be more measured. This looked like a team that went in with 2 international friendlies under their belts. They won both. They had a full training camp in Spain. Like, it was just looking like a really stacked roster, including the alternates. It was really, really good. But it's almost like it must have been too good because this emerged, and then you really feel for the players because, to reports they had no knowledge. And I think it's really important to understand what that kind of distraction does. We did hear Caitlin Sheridan just now saying that, she's really proud of her team. And this is a team that is very good at that, but they shouldn't have to be. And the distractions are coming from inside. Like, that's a lot to process.
Yeah. And so this is a team with that reputation. As you say, we all remember Tokyo, right? Winning gold. Does this affect the team's reputation?
Well, I think on the whole, I mean, I would be naive to say anyone would be naive to think that Canada Soccer will not be, implicated or their reputation tarnished. And at the end of the day, this really is a team full of grit and determination and passion. And that's what we'll have to see this morning. Also, Janine Becky said that it'll come down to the 18 players on the pitch, and they're going to be the ones that are in charge, essentially. And at the same time, I kind of felt a bit sad because essentially it shouldn't only be on the shoulders of the players. It should be the coaching staff and the federation, but she's acknowledging that it's really up to them to shut out the noise. So as far as its global reputation, I mean, I've been getting jokes and memes in my inbox since the morning from colleagues all over the world, and people sort of saying, well, look, New Zealand is not the most highly ranked team. Why would this happen against a team? I mean, you could argue that, Colombia, who Canada hasn't played in 12 years, it might make more sense, but this sort of, completely ridiculous attempt at espionage, which is, truthfully, it's unfair. It's not fair play. It's not in the spirit of what this tournament is supposed to be. So yes, to answer your question, I would say that Canada's image is going to be tarnished.
Yeah, we're taking some reaction now as well. My guest is Shireen Ahmed, CBC special analyst for women's soccer and the Olympics. And we're asking you, in light of this scandal over alleged spying by drone, by staff members of the Canadian women's soccer team. 2 staff members have been sent home as a result. And the head coach, soccer coach, Bev Priestman, says she's going to be proactive and step aside for tomorrow's opening game. Asking you, what are your thoughts? Does this tarnish your own excitement for the Olympics, your own view of the women's team? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Blair is joining us from Smithers. Hi, Blair.
Good afternoon, Michelle.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? What's your reaction to this story?
Well, somewhat not surprised, and I find the drone incident goes beyond poor sportsmanship, and it borders on cheating. And I do not blame the players. I'd like to make that clear. I blame it on the own the podium attitude that Canada's had since the 2010 Olympics.
Right.
And I equate it, along with what happened in the luge and sledding events, where Canada built a course that was too steep, didn't allow other countries adequate time to train on it, and it resulted in the death of a competitor who I believe was from Georgia.
Yeah.
And I think Canada has too much of a fixation on gold, and silver is not the first loser, and there's nothing wrong with being fourth. and that a top 10 finish should be commended. We seem to have an expectation, which I think is overly ambitious, that we should be getting 20, 30 medals, and I think it affects the athletes in particular.
So it's that culture.
It's a culture that's developed and is a poor sportsmanship, is not to be respected. And Canada, as I've mentioned, the bad example, but Canada was also involved in what I would call the best display of sportsmanship at the Olympics ever, and we were on the receiving end when one of the women cross-country skiers, when Canada dominated that sport, was near the lead or in the lead, broke a pole, and a German coach ran out onto the field and handed her one so she could compete. Now that's sportsmanship, and I think that we need to refocus on not just accomplishment, but on ethics and the sort of displaying sportsmanship, which will make our nation proud.
Well said, Blair. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
That's Blair and Smithers. Yeah. Does this go to? I mean, is there a conversation around the ethics, general ethics in and in sport? Shireen.
Oh, well, I think there's definitely that. And just to clarify, I'm by no means saying that isn't cheating. That's exactly what it is. And I should have been more clear. But in that realm, it's also in sportsmanlike behavior, because that's not what it takes to win. And it's not what this team has relied on to win in the past. It's also terribly unfair to the New Zealand players. And then they become the part of a series of questions of people who keep asking, well, why New Zealand? Because they're not ranked high anyway. So that's this unfortunate attention narrative that's spread about them, so the whole thing is really generally awful. I think we can all agree on that. And I mean, if you want to talk, there was just a media call like minutes ago in which the COC is really like making some very bold statements. And at the same time, you even have the Minister of Sport that's talking about the importance of the sanctions, and how Minister Carla Qualtrough actually supports the sanctions that were made against them and the staff members being sent home. And I think that's really important, because one way that would have been worse would have been people to blindly defend what was happening when we know this really, the accountability needs to go somewhere. So the fact that the COC is coming out so boldly and saying that is also important for their own reputation. They don't want to be associated with any of this, right? So, we're days ahead of the opening ceremonies, and this is an embarrassing way to start off the tournament, because this is all anyone's talking about. So it's ethically and morally and just generally unacceptable behavior.
Shireen, very good to speak with you this afternoon. I'm sure you have a busy day ahead. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
That's CBC Special Olympic and Soccer Analyst Shireen Ahmed, and we reached her in Toronto. 12:18 Pacific Time now. This is BC Today. We'll continue to take your calls on the Canada soccer drone cheating allegations in just a few moments. Right now, just a quick update on the wildfires in BC and Alberta. At Alberta's Jasper National Park, the two large wildfires there are burning out of control and are now just 5 and 8 kilometers away from the town of Jasper. Winds have been high and gusty, and that's fanned the spread of the fire overnight. There has been some damage to infrastructure along Highway 16. 245 people have been picked up and contacted in the backcountry trails. They continue to evacuate people from more trails that are considered low risk. They are expecting rain for this evening, so that gives some hope that will reduce fire activity. Right now, though, no timeline for being able to return to Jasper. As you know, over the last few days, thousands have fled Jasper, and many arriving in BC towns. Now, in this province, there are more than 400 wildfires burning. There are 20 evacuation orders affecting 540 people, 28 evacuation alerts. An update was given just about a half an hour ago, within the last hour, from Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma. We're going to talk about that in about 10 minutes from now. Wildfires have become our new summer reality, and so we're talking safety tips for those of you who enjoy camping and hiking. There is a wildfire risk now. How much does that factor when you plan your outdoor adventures? And do you know what to do should you be caught too close to a wildfire as you're out hiking or camping? So after 12:30, the head of BC Adventure Smart will join us, and we will take your calls on that. More on your calls now on this scandal over alleged spying by staff members of the Canadian women's soccer team as the Olympics get underway. Asking you, does this incident taint your excitement for the Olympics? How does it affect the reputation of the Canadian women's soccer team? Our number is 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Basil is calling us from Port Coquitlam. Hi, Basil.
Hi, thank you. Yes, for
What's your reaction?
Well, I'm so sad for the women's soccer team. They would not, I'm absolutely sure, not one of those players would support such cheating. They can win with fair play and sportsmanship. They don't need to cheat, and everyone won't remember, even if they do win, and this helps them win. No one's going to remember them winning. They're going to remember how they cheated. And so it is really a black mark against Canada. And fair play and sportsmanship is far more important than who wins. And it's the most important event of the Olympic Games. I think everyone's going to be watching that soccer. It's such a world and popular sport. And so anyone involved in this should be fired and resigned and never be allowed to work with soccer again.
Basil.
So it's really sad that anyone would do this, and the women must be really upset that someone would try to win by cheating.
Basil, thank you for your call. Joining me now to talk about that element of fair play, Carrie Serwetnik is a former Team Canada soccer player, the first woman in Canada in the Canada Soccer Hall of Fame, and also the founder of the Equal Play Society charity, and that strives to make positive changes for girls and women on and off the field. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, great to hear from you. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for your time. I mean, you're someone who advocates for fairness in play, equal play and equal pay for players. How does today's news leave you feeling?
Well, obviously it's scandalous. I'm in Iceland right now, about to fly into Paris. And so I was awake before most Canadians heard the news. And so I've just been asking myself so many questions. It's just such an unfortunate incident. Not to mention, I have to use the word bonehead. I mean, for weeks we've been hearing that Saint Etienne, the city where they're going to be playing, is under red alert terrorist, precautions, because they arrested someone a few weeks ago who wanted to kill soccer fans. And so for them to be flying a drone over an Olympic practice venue is just ridiculous. Like who decided this? And you ask questions like, have they been doing this all along? Have they been doing this for past games? Does this help with their success? And it's so unfortunate. I really wonder about Bev Priestman. I've always liked her as a coach, and did she know about this? And unfortunately, if she did, I feel like maybe she should be sent home, and they find another alternative for somebody to guide the team, because it's not fair to the players. It's not fair to all athletes who represent Canada, because I'm sure that they're hearing of this news and it's a distraction. And I know if I thought another country did this, I would think all their athletes are cheating or doing something that's not in the spirit of the Olympic Games.
Bev Priestman has released a statement saying she wanted to apologize. This does not represent the values that our team stands for. And from what she's saying, she's learning the details. And obviously, as this is all unfolding, by no means did I direct the individual. So that's a statement from the coach,
Okay.
Bev Priestman. What do you think is going through the minds of the players as someone who's been on the pitch?
They must be hearing from their family and friends and fans. They must be hearing. I've seen some stuff online that isn't very positive, let's say, and so that must hurt them. They've worked so hard to get to this point. They're defending their Olympic gold medal. They play with heart, integrity. We've always loved the team for their spirit, and it's for them to be going into this match with everyone discussing that they're cheaters must be awful. So I think their only response can be to get together and play the best match in their life and prove that they don't need drones flying over the other team's practice to win a game.
Ken is joining us from Robson. What do you think of this scandal, Ken?
Well, let me say I am profoundly ashamed, shocked, and dismayed by such behavior. Whatever could have possessed anyone to have contrived such a bonehead gesture is one thing, but don't you see how this will scar the reputation of the innocent, those members? Inevitably, there's only going to be a losing scenario for Canada. I think there should be an immediate letter signed by each of the members who can disavow any knowledge of any such or involvement in any such scheme, together with a profound apology personally to each member of the team. I would start there.
The New Zealand team.
Say, and to Canada, what a thing to have here, and what a distraction to have. The shame that will be borne by this country. I say that, it's beyond belief.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be blown off. People, it's one thing to hold people responsible, but unfortunately, that whole team, and every member is going to be wearing this. And I think that we should do whatever we can to exonerate the innocent and profoundly apologize for the behavior, which is not only deplorable, it's contrary to any ethical belief of anybody who believes in the Olympic spirit. I mean, who are these people?
Ken, thank you very much.
I say that. I lived in New Zealand for 7 years. My wife and my family are all Kiwi citizens. And you bet I'm ashamed. And so should every Canadian.
Ken, thank you for the call from Robson. Carrie, you work with younger up and coming players. How do you explain something like this to them?
Well, it's a good question because for years I've heard about the 2012 Olympics when Christine Sinclair scored multiple goals and it was against United States, and it was just such an epic match that's been it put in the soul of Canadians. People became soccer fans from that moment. And I feel like the next 10 years from now, I will have someone come up to me and say, "Oh yeah, well, what about that cheating, right?" And your past person was talking mentioned that it's gonna it doesn't matter if they win this tournament, it's gonna be a question in people's mind, and we all, because we love this team so much, we feel it personally. I think as Canadians that this is not who we are. And so we don't expect it from a team that we respect. And so, yes, how do we say that to young kids? I think not everyone's really paying attention, to be honest, but I think they need to learn a lesson that you just can't do that. And I think soccer is full of all kinds of inspirational lessons. And this is going to be something we talk about in the future that hopefully doesn't happen again.
We as Ron said there, he would like an apology to each of the members. Jackie wrote us saying, "I'm appalled to hear that they would be attending ethics training. If they don't already know that cheating is unethical, then we're really in trouble." What would you like to see moving forward? What action would you like to see? These two staff members have been sent home, and the assistant coach and the unaccredited member. And as we heard, the coach has said she's just going to step aside for the opening game. What further action would you like to see?
Well, first of all, I really need to know if Bev Priestman knew anything. Right. And if she did, I would never say this. I don't dislike her. Right. But I think she needs to go if she knew anything of it.
You're not reassured by her statement.
Who knows? Right. And I think that's going to be in the back of everyone's mind. Was this the first time? How'd they get this drone? Right. Did it go through security? Did they go buy a drone? It's just ridiculous. And I think the team's going to have to prove it on the field. The next game is against France. You could have 10 drones, on their practice field, and it's going to be a tough game. So soccer is a rough sport. It takes so much integrity to overcome, the opponents and win. So I hope it brings the team together, and they're so angry and mad over this that they give us the best performance they've ever shown Canada. That's what needs to happen. They don't need drones to win an Olympic match.
Carrie, always good to speak with you. Really appreciate your taking our call today. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck to Canada.
That's Carrie Sarwetnik, former Team Canada player. And again, Bev Priestman's statement did say, by no means did I direct the individuals. I'm still learning the details. Obviously, this is all unfolding. But I think the important thing right now is to look forward, put the actions in place, and take the sanctions. That statement from Team Canada head coach Bev Priestman. Some emails now. Maxine writes with some questions as well. I'd like to know how far this scandal goes. Who viewed the drone footage? Coaches, players, and who else witnessed? Jackie writes further to her questions around the ethics training. This is such an unfortunate stain on the team and on Canada. I wish there could be a penalty payment for damage to our international reputation. And Eleanor writes, while I'm disappointed by this event, I'm more concerned about the security implication. Elena, thank you very much. Our email address is bctoday@cbc.ca. 12:32 now. Thanks for joining us here on the program. I'm Michelle Elliott. I hope you're having a good day so far. We're going to talk about the wildfires coming up in our next half hour and how they are affecting very popular British Columbia pastime, being out in the wilderness and going camping and hiking and backpacking. How do wildfires factor into your planning? We're going to get some safety tips from BC Adventure Smart. That's coming up right after this CBC News Update with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Officials say at least 6 homes in the southern interior have been destroyed by a wildfire. The homes were lost in the Venables Valley near Spence's Bridge. More than 24 other buildings have been destroyed there. Meanwhile, the BC Wildfire Service says its crews are focused on fighting the most threatening of about 430 active fires. Says the majority of those fires have been sparked by thousands of lightning strikes in recent days. The province says about 470 properties are still on evacuation order, with more than 3,000 on alert. And police say an elderly woman was allegedly sexually assaulted in her home last night in Cobble Hill, north of Victoria. Shawnigan Lake RCMP say they responded to a report just after 9 o'clock that an unknown man had entered the woman's home and attacked her. They say the Mounties Police Dog Service went to the scene, but they weren't able to track the suspect. And now the forecast. Environment Canada is warning about the possibility of severe thunderstorms for several areas, including the Peace and Central Interior. On the North Coast, a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with a high of 17. Sunny and hazy in the Kootenays with highs up to 35. In the Southern Interior, including Kelowna, a high of 30 with increasing cloudiness. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with highs around 22. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Rob. That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And do stay with us. Lots more coming here on CBC and CBC Radio. Here's what's on the air for On the Coast.
Michelle, hello there. It's Gloria Makarenko here, and I hope you can join us for On the Coast this afternoon. We're continuing our week-long series on Korean pop music, and today we're going to meet the team behind a local dance studio that uses K-pop, and they also hold auditions for K-pop companies to try to get more local dancers into the industry. And we've been talking this week about swimming lessons and the importance of overall swim safety. So today we're going to hear about an initiative to try to get more swim lessons for newcomers to Canada. So I hope you can join us for On the Coast between 3 and 6.
Gloria, thank you very much. We will tune in. That's Gloria Makarenko with On the Coast for our Metro Vancouver audience. And of course, Radio West in the interior. Lots of wildfire coverage this afternoon for you there with Sarah Penton and Jason D'Souza over at All Points West on Vancouver Island. We were talking about soccer in our last half hour and the spying scandal that the Canadian women's team is now embroiled in. John wrote us an email. Canada is known internationally for honesty and integrity, but this has been erased by two people. Stephanie writes from Gibson's, while I do not condone cheating of any kind, the drone was definitely crazy over the top and so wrong. Isn't it standard procedure for teams to study video of the other teams to see what they're up against in football of all descriptions? So that there, but I suppose that's different from spying, which is what's alleged here. Stephanie, thank you very much. BC Today at cbc.ca. To the wildfires now and how they're affecting a staple pastime during BC summers, and that's hiking and camping and backpacking. As we heard in the update from Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma in the last hour, still more than 400 wildfires burning in BC, and a number 540 people affected by evacuation orders at this time. Now, if you spend time in the outdoors or the backcountry, you may have seen those dry conditions and experienced the heat in the forest. Perhaps you've even come too close to a wildfire. Or that's what happened last week when one group of backpackers had a close call at Fish Lake near Cranbrook. Last Tuesday, Laurel Swinyard was hiking at Fish Lake with her group when they heard thunder and then watched the Mount Moro fire break out on top of the World Provincial Park.
It's probably the most terrifying walk we've ever done. As we were walking out, you could look back and see the red glow, which, you know, made the decision like, yeah, that definitely was a smart call. We made it out in 1:45, which is about half an hour quicker than we went in. So it was pretty fast, and we sang at the top of our lungs for 2 straight hours, and it was not good.
That's hiker Laurel Swinyard. Now, the Mount Moro wildfire continues to burn. It's estimated to be at 3,700 hectares, and there are restrictions in the area. We're asking you right now, how are wildfires affecting your own outdoor trip planning? How do they factor into your hiking, backpacking, and camping? And would you know what to do if you're caught near a wildfire? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Sandra Riches is Executive Director of BC Adventure Smart, and they're holding a seminar tomorrow along with the BC Wildfire Service. Sandra joins me now. Hello.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Great, and very good to hear from you. You're holding a seminar tomorrow as part of your summer series. It is about wildfires. Why is this so needed right now?
We queue up our summer series well before we know what's going to happen. This has turned out to be incredible timing, to be honest, with everything that's happening in the province and our neighboring province. This will give enthusiasts a chance to have a face-to-face, one-on-one, ask questions, learn from the experts at the BC Wildfire Service. That's this Thursday, July 25th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And our guests are coming on to help all levels of enthusiasts, travelers, tourists, those that are making their way around the province, learn a little bit more about what the BC Wildfire Service has to offer with their resources. They're going to talk about weather conditions, mapping, their mobile app. They'll have a good 45 minutes to share their information with you, and then the public can also ask questions.
And you mentioned, this happens to be very timely right now, right? We know about hikers and backcountry hikers being evacuated right now at Jasper National Park. You also have a video, in fact, that you've shared as part of your seminar, and this is what the experience is of some hikers as they see a wildfire erupt. Let's take a listen and watch. What's happening there, Sandra?
The video isn't able to be seen from my end. If you're
Yeah,
sharing
sure.
the hiker trapped by the wildfire
Yes.
from last summer,
Yes.
yeah, that group were fortunate. No question about it. And we were very grateful to have Sage come on and be our guest. She describes what it was like for them. They headed out that day. They had planned for a little bit of a hike. They prepared. They packed a few essentials, which was great to hear, which they also describe in that video. The weather changed quickly. They didn't look into different conditions like the wind. The wind was a massive factor that day, they said, and how quickly it blew the smoke from that fire in the region on Mount Bruce, East Kootenay region, north of Kimberley, really changed their situation very, very quickly. From the time they realized there was smoke bellowing
Wow.
to the time they were very fortunately rescued by a helicopter that was in the area and that noticed their car in the parking lot was less than 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And everything worked out very smoothly for them. They were able to actually go back down, thanks to the helicopter, to their vehicle in the parking lot, get in it, and drive out very quickly, instructed by the pilot. You know, what Sage and her group learned in that situation is they didn't plan for an exit plan. They didn't think about a different route out, a different trail out of the region in case something happened, whatever that was. And as we go into summers, it's really good to think about these scenarios. With all of our outdoor education at BC Adventure Smart, we talk about what will you do in an incident if you break your ankle, if you get lost, hurt, if you exceed your abilities, what will you do? How will you manage your situation? Now we need to fold in, well, how will you manage being caught by a wildfire? What will you do?
Right.
Considering those exit plans, using the Wildfire mobile app is an excellent way to go. Carrying extra gear like bandanas and buffs to go over your mouth to protect you from the smoke, a filter, and always carrying the proper communication devices.
Let's put out the numbers again. You know, we're asking you if you're an avid hiker, as someone who's a camping enthusiast, how do wildfires factor into your planning? You know, does it kind of weigh over you? As a cloud, is there a cloud hanging over you as you make your plans? And so, how does it influence the gear that you bring, any of your planning, the timing? Love to hear from you. Have you had an experience where you got close to a wildfire and did you know what to do? Do you have any questions as well? If you're planning to head out in the coming weeks, do you have any questions for how to prepare? Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. I'm joined by Sandra Riches, Executive Director of BC Adventure Smart. And you made a good point there earlier, Sandra, about having an exit plan. What else is involved in trip planning if you're keeping wildfires in mind?
You can head over to the Adventure Smart website. We have an Adventure Smart trip plan app that
Okay.
will help you plan. It will also help you forward that information to your emergency contact. This is used for any outdoor adventure. It could be used for a road trip. And then your emergency contact have information about where you are, who you're with, what you're planning to do, the gear you have with you, and your emergency plan. That's number one. The first T in our 3 T's is all about trip planning. Really research the areas you're heading into, especially right now with these conditions being so variable,
Right.
and planning that route accordingly.
What are some specific things people can do to prepare? Like if you're thinking about the region, for example, know before you go, what are some things they should look for? Should they look for the wildfire risk in that area, and that kind of thing? What should they be looking for in terms of the area that they're going to?
Absolutely. That's part of all that trip planning and that research. So you're checking out the maps and where you're going, what hazards might be a factor, if it's high flowing water, if it's wildfire hazards, and we're looking into that as much as possible. And that's included into your trip plan and leaving that with your emergency contact, using the resources that are available. Adventure Smart, Be Prepared BC, the BC Search and Rescue Association's outdoor education, the BC Wildfire Service app, their resources, their mapping, their conditions. This all gets folded into and inserted into your planning. And that will help you head out for a safe adventure or steer you in a direction where it is safer. It might be in a different region or a different trail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are people becoming more aware of the risk of wildfire and how it influences their their hiking and camping?
I think in my work, I'm realizing that we're putting out as much information as we can, working with affiliates to keep people abreast of what's happening currently over the recent years. And enthusiasts are starting to think about it a little bit more. The conversation's happening from our end. We're engaging with enthusiasts, and they're asking great questions, and it's surfacing. It's coming to the surface for enthusiasts to think about this. If we're traveling to the interior for a summer vacation, will we be affected by wildfires? If I'm heading for a backcountry hike or a camp with my friends, will I be affected by wildfire conditions, smoke, trail closures? Do I have an exit plan? This all now is folded into what we're doing in our planning phases, where we didn't always consider these types of conditions before.
Yeah, we've heard about the smoky conditions at Jasper National Park. James has a question over email, and he says he's puzzled over air quality reports. It can say in different locals, low risk at 2, but then 7+ for smoke. There's often no smoke that can be seen or smelled. Is a +7 just saying that if there is smoke in the air, that risk would be 7+, or is it that it is actually 7+ with particles that we can't see or smell? So James would like some clarification. Yeah, what should we be relying on when it comes to air quality?
Great question, and I would consider the same myself. I would like to know a little bit more about that. That's not my area of specialty, but looking into the health effects it would have on us, knowing if we have any health issues that it might affect us, if we're a senior, if we have asthma, if our children are quite young, it might affect them more. And without being that reliable resource, I would look elsewhere. We have to use our common sense as well if this is going to affect us for the activity we choose to do, depending on the temperature, the weather, the smoke, the air quality, and making those decisions no different than if it's avalanche risk in the winter, smoke risk in the summer, or wildfire. We can always save it for another time and not go at the time we think we originally wanted to.
Okay. And did you talk earlier about having, when it comes to extra gear, perhaps having a mask or something to be able to cover your mouth?
Absolutely. We have our list of essentials you should carry. Don't forget about the season and specific gear, depending on your adventure, the activity you're choosing to do. And now let's bring in those extra pieces like a mask, a bandana, something to place over your face. Think about that for your entire group. And don't forget about your pets. I know a lot of people hike with pets and think about that, or might have to be evacuated with their pets. We have to consider them as well.
And what about when there are firefighting efforts underway in the area? When people, well, we've heard before about drones, once again, interfering with those efforts. What about if you are in the area doing some camping or whatnot? What do you need to keep in mind there so that you're not interfering, you're not disrupting firefighting?
Respecting those first responders and fire, search and rescue included. Police, RCMP, whatever they're doing in the area, and giving them the space. I think this goes back to that planning piece. We need to really research if it's okay for us to go into that region originally. And if we happen to be there, and we do need to respect those areas and remove ourselves from the area as quickly as possible if we can. If we can see that that's a hazard, we need to remove ourselves. Don't forget, you've got your communication device if you need help to get out of that area. That would be a Zoleo, a Garmin InReach, for example. Those are your primary means of communication. And let's say you had a drone for some reason. Obviously, we're not flying the drones when there's helicopter use, and unless you have permission to use in that area.
Okay. And what are some resources that people should be looking to? You mentioned the BC Adventure Smart website, the app, but what are some things that they should look up before they go?
Head over to the BC Search and Rescue Association's website, and underneath the Outdoor Education banner, you'll see all of BC Adventure Smart's resources. We have an adventure hub to help you plan your travels. We have events and webinars. We have trail-specific safety videos in our video library. You can also visit the Adventure Smart website, adventuresmart.ca. Of course, BC Wildfire Service mobile app and their website. And really use these reliable resources. Don't forget about Prepared BC. We need to have our grab and go bags for us and our pets. There's a lot of resources that are reliable, available, easily accessible, and there for you to use. to prepare and help you know what to do in an emergency.
And Sandra, right now, of course, there's a campfire ban around the province. What should people do? Say they see someone who does set up a campfire.
Oh, let's do our best to encourage that person not to, for one. And if we do need to report it, don't forget we need to report those wildfires and get that information in, you know, and talk to our friends before. I talk a lot about pre-trip. Plan these adventures, know what we can do, know what we can't do, know where we can go, know where we can't go, and know the resources that are available to you in case you do need help. And if you do need search and rescue, it's available 24/7, free of charge. And to access them, you can call 911.
Sandra, thank you very much for going over these safety tips. Very important right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a safe summer.
You too. Sandra Rich is the Executive Director of BC Adventure Smart. They are holding a seminar tomorrow along with the BC Wildfire Service. You can go online and look up BC Adventure Smart. And as she said, the BC Search and Rescue Association website as well will have resources for you. It is 12:51 now Pacific time. This is BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. Now, yesterday on the show, we asked you if you rely on cash. Still, these days we all seem to be turning towards using our cards or even perhaps our phones to pay for things. But some say that we should be able to access cash. And there is a private member's bill right now looking to set up a framework for continued access to the use of cash. Well, we asked for your thoughts yesterday on the program, and we got a lot of emails. This email right now, and it says, cash is definitely an important topic. It is a legal tender and should never be denied as a method of payment. I refuse to support businesses that do not accept cash. As someone who works at a credit union, I see cash being used all the time. What many people don't realize when they're using their electronic format of payment is they can potentially put themselves into risk of being scammed. Most fraud and scams happen via electronic channels like email, online payments. With privacy legislation, it's almost impossible to be able to trace where the funds end up. And it is a very rare occasion when the funds can be recovered. Most of the time, they are not. Not very many people have discussed on today's segment how common fraud is these days, whether it is e-transfers or fraudulent checks, card skimming. It happens a lot more than we ever consider or imagine. There are definitely fraudulent banknotes as well. However, there are ways to check if cash is real, especially if a person understands how to check for fraudulent bills. Scams can be avoided. There's no way to have funds verified on a check. So if returns due to non-sufficient funds, it will overdraw an account. At the end of the day, cash is still king, whether or not our society likes to tell us it's not. Majority of people selling things online or used vehicles don't want to check as a form of payment, and that is because of fraud. I've seen some horrible situations when it comes to online scams and fraud. I do use both electronic method of payments, but personally always have cash on me regardless. You just never know when you need it. Tanya writes as well, I use cash on the go daily. I've taught my kids to budget using cash. I can vouch that when you spend cash, you make more thought-through decisions than just throwing your phone at a retailer's wand or just tapping your card without even putting in a PIN code. It just lets us reflect more on how we are spending. When the cash is gone, the spending is done. And M writes, this sounds like a giant waste of time that supports the underground economy more than anyone. Maybe ask the 16-year-old clerks who get robbed for $30 what kind of system they prefer. Let business decide when it works, such as emergencies, rather than have another government bill dictate what to do. Thank you so much for your emails. We got a lot of them to bctoday@cbc.ca. And here's another email as well on the topic of soccer, which we talked about last half hour. And Teresa writes, thank you for today's show. I wonder if there is something deeper. I hope it doesn't involve illegal betting on soccer games during the Olympics. Just a query. In any event, it is a sad state of affairs. Thank you so much, Teresa, for your email. Our address again is bctoday@cbc.ca. Now, do join us tomorrow on the program. We're going to talk about social media influencers. Do you follow any, or what do you think of social media influencers? There's actually an event at the second annual East by Northwest Summit that's taking place this weekend in Vancouver, and they're going to talk about social media influencers. Our guest will be David Tong, Peter Chow, and he's a content creator, and he's actually pursued a career. He's going to be in social media influencing, and he's part of a panel called The Art of Short Form Storytelling, Crafting Engaging Narratives in Seconds. And this is a TikTok creator panel. You may know about YouTubers and through your kids. I know my kids have the YouTubers that are their favorites, or maybe you follow some people over on TikTok. I follow people on Instagram and YouTube. And let us know, do they influence you? And do you think social media influencing is a viable career option? You know, is that something your kids have turned to you and said, I want to be an influencer? Oh my, what goes through your mind when they say that? We'd love to hear from you tomorrow. We'll have a guest who has done it, is doing it, is speaking about it on a panel this weekend at East by Northwest. And we'd love to hear your thoughts as well on the art of social media influencing.